My name is Corinne Freund, 3434 George Court, and I'm a concerned mother of a student in WBSD. I'm here today to cast light onto CRT and social emotional learning in our district. I have resources, handouts here for the board so you guys can see my research that I've done in preparation. If you don't know what CRT is, it's a system rooted in Marxism. Please refer to Exhibit A while looking. I'd like to quote Dr. Wyatt T. Walker, one of MLK's closest friends, who stated, CRT chooses race consciousness over the Enlightenment view of color blindness as a social norm. CRT defines people by categories of race, placing people in either oppressor or the oppressed, power groups. In response to this, how can two people ever bind together in friendships if they are members of an inherently opposed power group? Why should individuals strive to success by merit if group dynamics make this impossible? How will we ever find peace among the races if we can't look at each other as individuals, person to person, based on actual facts and intentions? Most of you are probably thinking we don't have CRT in WBSD, and you would be correct in that thought. But we do know educators in the district have issued white privilege tests to students. We know teachers have leeway in the classroom within our district. Through open records request, citizens have found that the school district has spent roughly 6 figures through many types of funding on training regarding topics like diversity, inclusion, and equity, and the SEL program itself. Many of these words are created in CRT. In addition, I have Exhibit C list equity resources for teachers, again from open records, that have titles such as White Fragility, The Moment I Understood White Privilege, and The History of the N-Word. I question what this training has to do with academic achievement for our children. In addition, WBSD has implemented SEL 1 into our grade schools, and implementation is of Level 2 into Badger through the CASEL program, as noted in the Badger newsletter, which some would consider CRT with a new label. I would like to bring to attention the board Exhibit C. CASEL is part of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. Currently, records on our grade school children from the CASEL program are being stored on a server in Georgia. Are you okay and are parents okay with the Gates and the Zuckerberg storing records of our children or injecting themselves into our children's education? Where was the consent for this to happen? Moreover, the National Association of School Psychology lists SEL Step 2 as a system to be administered by mental health professionals, counselors, school psychologists, and social workers. In other words, someone with a higher education.
Great, thank you for your comments. Your 3 minutes are up.
Hi, my name is Neil Freund. I also live on George Court in West Bend, and current parent of a WBSD student. I'm here today to bring the board's attention to my concern with the language and ultimate implementation of the principal's message sent out to parents in the summer newsletter. Mr. Yeoman wrote, and I quote, "As a school, we are excited with the renewed focus on our Tier 1 instruction, focusing on a new literacy framework, creating practice, social-emotional learning, and equity and inclusion." As I did some research into social-emotional learning, equity and inclusion, I would like to share with you what I have found. This following is taken from Navigating SEL from Inside Out, July 2021 edition, which is the framework of our second step that you have adopted. So they say achieving equitable SEL, they define education equity as the intentional counter to inequality, institutionalized privilege, prejudice, and systemic deficits in our educational system. This concept combines commonly accepted aspects of education equity, like fairness and inclusion, with the broader, more expansive system-focused aspects of racial equity, such as dismantling white supremacy and addressing the legal, political, social, cultural, and historical contributors to inequity that exists within broader societal and institutional structures. This leaves one to conclude that education through an SEL lens begins with the false premise that all American and educational institutions and structure are unequal or racist from the start, which is not true. This is later reinforced by their paper's saying that the equitable SEL is not just for students of color. All children begin absorbing and internalizing messages, whether through subtle cues or overt statements, about our own racial inferiority or superiority from a very young age. White students' beliefs on their own superiority, however unintentional or subconscious, negatively impact their socio-emotional and moral health and ultimately impair their ability to focus in a diverse world. Children who are never asked to confront their role in a racist and unjust society are at a disadvantage. I challenge the board here to carefully review the curriculum being implemented in our schools with a renewed vision, a better understanding of the destructive nature of SEL, and encourage you to take appropriate action if this material is presented in our classrooms now or in the future. And do not mask our children. Thank you.
I'm Nicole Casper. I live at 5047 South Oak Road. I'm a registered nurse and a mother of 2 in the district. Sir Francis Bacon coined the phrase, "The remedy is worse than the disease." Although that was a long time ago, the sentiment still remains. It cautions us that our response to an illness must always consider the negative impacts the treatment itself might have. This is science. Unfortunately, today we find ourselves desperately hoping to combat 2 diseases, one literally with COVID and one figuratively with identity politics or CRT. Both exist, we're foolish to deny either. As a nurse, I've cared for COVID patients. As a member of a mixed race family, I've personally witnessed the impact of racism and bigotry. Both are real. We must not allow our children, though, to suffer from interventions that are only negatively impacting them, like masks. School-age children should not be forced to wear masks. I could go on and on about the negative physical, social, and psychological effects that masks have on children. Countries that have had no mask mandates have had 0 transmission between students. I have a list of tons of articles that cite these psychological and physical ramifications to children. So let's take the initiative to stop fear-mongering our children, to be scared of an illness that doesn't really affect them. It is selfish, unethical, and abusive to force children to wear masks. Let's let families make their own decisions. Next, it is public knowledge that critical race theory has been adapted into SEL to make it more palliative for parents. CRT was never meant to be brought to grade school or high school levels. Now, I've read the equity resources that have been given to our teachers, so it's safe to say that we can say CRT has already made its way to our doorstep. It's completely biased resources, and when education is completely biased, we are now indoctrinating. Everything I read from that list is divisive. CRT-based resources can only be divisive, causing more animosity, division, hatred, anxiety, and depression. There's no positive outcome using CRT because it is in itself is racist. Here are some related sobering statistics. The national average of suicides and suicide attempts in teens ages 10 to 18 have gone up 60% in the last 2 years. And our local hospitals, like immediately local hospitals, it's even higher than that. We are fooling ourselves if we can't see that this is directly related to COVID guidelines, fear-mongering, and divisive identity politics like CRT. We are destroying our youth and our community as a whole. I need to be assured this is not going to be in our grade schools, and I beg you to remove these policies from middle schools and high schools. I will not hesitate to pull my kids out of the school district. Be kind, be respectful, be responsible. It is really as simple as treating everyone with respect, kindness, and being responsible for your own actions. It does not have to get more complicated than that.